All right, it's November 17th, 2020. It's been a while since I uploaded a video, so I thought I would. I was laying in bed thinking this morning about the future and what that's likely to look like, as I sometimes do. The noise on top of my house is we have a huge windstorm coming in. It's going to blow in some rain, but I have a roof open. I was doing some roofing and I've had to put a tarp over it. So that's the noise. So hope that isn't too distracting. So I was laying in bed thinking about the future. We just had an election. Joe Biden just presumably won over Donald Trump. And I don't really care who's in the White House much. I'm mature enough to know and experienced enough to know, been around a while, gray, to know that it doesn't really matter. Maybe it matters a little bit this way and a little bit that way. And maybe it mattered more in the past. There's a thought that leadership mattered more in the past. I think there was a time when political leaders were more independent. They brought more character. They brought more substance. And now, since about, I don't know, maybe Ronald Reagan, it's been without substance. Okay, it's been a lot of personalities and whether your hair is combed a certain way or your teeth straight and things like that. We end up with candidates that are likable, look well, don't offend anybody, don't take a hard stand, don't have any big projects, don't raise waves. And in that environment, it's pretty much come down to the corporations are running America, and via globalization, they've been running the world. So with that as a backdrop to my thinking, it kind of doesn't matter who's president. I mean, it matters. I voted for Joe Biden. It's fine. I live in California. That's what we do. But I was also tired of Donald Trump. And but I don't actually expect anything to be different now that we have Joe Biden for the things in the world that I care about. So what do I care about? I am actually a one issue person. Not because I'm dumb. I'm a scientist. I'm a teacher. I'm an engineer. I'm a home builder. I have a lot of interests. I have a lot of capabilities. I've done a lot of things in my life. I have a very rich career. I've worked with many types of people on many types of problems. These days, I have one issue, just one, and that's global heating leading to climate change. Okay, before you click away and say, okay, it's an issue. All right, I'm a scientist. I'm being honest with you. It's an issue. Now, if you think I have an agenda, I don't. I don't actually get grants to study climate change. All right, I don't have an agenda with the UN. Okay, I don't have a dog in this fight. It's an issue. It just is. Okay, so scientists got you to the moon. Scientists got you your cell phone. Scientists invented penicillin, and here's a scientist telling you it's an issue. All right, fair enough. So the issue I care about, climate change, is not going to be addressed by Donald Trump. It's not going to be addressed by Joe Biden. And it probably won't be addressed by the president after Joe Biden, because it's just not in their interest to do that, meaning in their corporate interests. The corporations don't want any deviation from what we call BAU, business as usual. So they make sure that topic just never comes up. There's lots of ways that they can place limits on what is discussed in the media, what is discussed in Congress, what bills come before Congress, those kinds of things. And they just don't want that. And they're not getting any pushback. Nobody wants that topic. Nobody wants that topic to come up. So it's really easy to tell people, we're not going to talk about this. So for my one concern that I have is that certainly Donald Trump didn't do anything about global warming, and Joe Biden's not going to do anything about global warming. And I want to explain why both of those are true. So it's easy to think of Donald Trump as the wacky but well-intentioned uncle, right? he's the guy that tells the little kids, of course Santa Claus is real. Don't listen to your parents. Don't listen to your older siblings saying Santa Claus isn't real and it's just a holiday. Santa Claus is real. I've seen him. He came down my chimney and we had a beer. And that's your wacky uncle, right? And Donald Trump is kind of like that. He spins a yarn, he entertains, he stands up there and people applaud, and he treats people like children because they want to be treated like children. They want to be lied to. Little children like the story of Santa Claus. They like the story of the Easter Bunny. And they like stories like, good people go to heaven, right? That's what they like. So, he lied to people. And when someone pressed him fairly recently about the pandemic, he says, yeah, I lied about it. I didn't want people to panic. Well, okay, lying is bad, but telling people a lie because you don't want them to panic, that's actually really common. So, right now we have this windstorm coming in, and if I had a small child here, and small child's like all scared, and it's all this noise, and Daddy, is it going to be okay? I'd say, sure, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Okay, but if this is a hurricane, and the house is at sea level, and there's going to be a storm surge out there, and I'm checking the window to see what's going on, maybe it's not going to be fine. But I just told the child it's going to be fine. Why? Because I don't want the child to worry. Protect the child from, worry. I can't really protect the child from the actual storm or the storm surge or the winds or the house collapsing or the roof being torn off. I can't protect them from that. But I can protect them from one thing, and that's worry. So when Donald Trump had the opportunity to tell the American people, yeah, this pandemic, they've been talking about this for 50 years, something like this is going to happen. And whew, boy, it's happening. And let me tell you, man, this is going to be a problem. Okay, he could have done that. But he didn't want to scare people. That's what his story is. Now that works for corporations because that means people continue because it's not a problem, right? The president says it's not a problem. The president says it's a hoax. Okay. People go to work, they go to the bars, they go to the malls, they go to the planes, they drive, they buy cars, they get lift tickets at Tahoe, season tickets at the sports arena. And the corporation's like, yeah, another quarter of profits. That's good for us. It's good for a lot of people, right? Because there are people working at the sports stadium, people working at Tahoe at the ski lift and things like that. So no complaints, right? We all like business as usual. That's business. That's our business as usual. So someone comes along and says, yeah, pandemic, just a little flu, young people don't even get it. Most people don't show symptoms and it's no big deal, no big deal. Well, here it is, November 17th, 2020. We're about to find out if it's going to be a big deal or not. The pandemic is now ramping up. It's becoming a big problem. Herd immunity is supposed to be like 70%. And the fatality rate with this particular virus is running at about 3%. But that was under highly controlled conditions when hospitals weren't completely impacted and there were other hospitals that could send help to impacted states. And, we had some capacity. Now we kind of don't have capacity. So now it's ramping up and of course, the virus is everywhere. I don't think there's a single state that isn't having increasing virus loads. Lots of rural states that we hadn't heard about in the prior peak are whining about we don't have hospitals, we don't have doctors and nurses, we don't have nothing. We're being snowed under here. So it's going to be bad. And it could be that the 3% fatality rate, when conditions were like really, really good, maybe that jumps to 5%, right? It could, right? If people get turned away at the door and they go home and they can't breathe and it just isn't working for them, maybe they die, right? If they'd gotten into the hospital, put them on oxygen, which is really easy to do, maybe they could have been okay. And after a few days, they go home. But if they go to the hospital, they can't breathe, and they go home without any oxygen therapy at all, maybe they die, right? So the fatality rate could go up just because things that could have been treated simply can't be. Nothing. You get nothing. Go home. Don't even come. We're telling the ambulances, don't bring people to the hospital for coronavirus. Just don't even pick them up. Leave them there. Joe Biden can't change that, can he? That's just not going to change. And I don't even think he would try. He's kind of a BAU kind of guy, right? Look at his voting record. Look at the things he talks about. So that's not going to change. That's not actually my issue. but it's a good illustration to the thing I do care about, which is climate change driven by global heating, which is the thing. That's really a thing. So when I was lying in bed, I was thinking about, okay, we just got rid of Donald Trump. His approach to climate change was it's a hoax. We're getting Joe Biden. His approach to climate change is, well, we can fix this with technology. We can fix this with small tweaks to the knobs. We're going to tweak a knob. We're going to tweak a knob over here. We're going to do this. And it's all going to be better. That's also kind of telling the little children a story. So that's not going to make any difference. Nope. It's still out there. Now, if you want to tell children that Santa Claus is real or that Santa Claus is fake, it doesn't change the fact that there is no Santa Claus, right? Your story doesn't matter. If you tell people that climate change is fake or climate change is real, it doesn't change the fact that there is climate change, right? It's still there. So what's going to happen? Donald Trump said it's not a big deal. Joe Biden says we can tweak the knobs, make a change here, change there. So what's going to happen? Here's my actual expectation. I've been reading headlines. I've been studying the data. I've been paying attention to these things exclusively because it's just the one thing I care about. And all signs to me are that the elites get it. The elites get it. They're the ones calling the shots. They were probably the ones who got Donald Trump elected or helped to do it. And even if they didn't, then they were certainly the ones there on day one in the White House as he showed up for work, telling him how the cow ate the cabbage. I don't know how much he listened to them, but they're pulling the strings behind the scenes. If not with the president, then certainly with Congress. That's real easy to do. Okay, and the same thing's going to be with Biden. So the elites know. Okay, they know they're pulling the strings the way they do. We all know they do that, pulling the strings, making the puppets dance around. They've been doing that for 50 years. And they're also telegraphing in the media, and they're being kind of deliberate about this. I find it rather interesting that I read something recently by a former analyst at Goldman Sachs who retired and became part of a roundtable of business executives, all of them in retirement. And he came out and said, the problem with the fires, what was he was talking about? He was talking about the fires, and it was pretty clear that the context in which he was talking about the fires in California was insurance. So here he is, business leader, Goldman Sachs, retired, now part of a business roundtable, advising the nation. Again, pulling strings behind the scenes, but that's what they do. That there's a problem with the insurance industry. Now, this is really easy to follow. We've had several massive fires here in California. We had one just outside of my hometown, up in Paradise. I grew up in Chico, just up the hill in Paradise, burned the entire town down, and 89 people died. Many of them in their cars trying to escape on the little narrow mountain roads. Right, didn't work. So they were able to peg that fire on PG&E's equipment, up sparking and dropping sparks and causing a fire. So PG&E has to pay. They've already gone to the state and they're seeking indemnification. You got to loan us money. You got to buy us out. You have to pay for this. And I think the state of California is very quietly going to pay for all of that. But fast forward 2 years, and we had another massive round of fires. We lost 4 million acres of forestry. And I'm not really talking about the trees as much as here as I'm talking about the communities. The Napa Wine Valley, which is quite famous around the world for its wines and varietals, grapes, and it burned. They lost several large historic vineyards and the associated, what do they call it? Wine cellars, I guess. The vineyards burned, the buildings burned, the wine was lost. They've lost large parts of the North Bay, very expensive real estate, lots of big expensive mansions up in those hills. And so the insurance companies are coming back and they're saying, wait, okay, so when they burned Paradise, which is just Podunk, California, PG&E was on the hook for that one, but who's on the hook for this one? Looking around. Who's going to pay for this, right? And there's nobody. The fires were started by lightning. and the conditions were made ripe for a massive conflagration because of long periods of drought, bark beetle infestations, dead trees, and heat, which also drives the drought, and the heat also drives the bark beetles, and then it's just hot on top of all that. So it's all global heating. You can say, oh, it's not. Okay, well, it is, right? The planet's getting warmer, and then when you have something that's caused by heat, well, there you go. Some part of that can be attributed to global heating. So the insurance companies have had such serious losses that I read that the last 30 years of profits from being an insurance company working in California have been eaten up by the expected losses. 30 years of profits went up in flames, literally and figuratively went up in flames. So now the insurance companies, and the reinsurance companies, so Munich Re, Swiss Re, these are big. These are big dogs, okay? These companies are practically governments unto themselves. They are now looking around saying, okay, wait, what just happened? And they are now leading the charge. And I prefaced this story by saying that this guy from Goldman Sachs wrote an op-ed, and I read it. I read it a couple of times. I said, this is interesting. And if you read between the lines, what he was talking about was the insurance companies are getting involved in climate change. They don't want to go out of business. Here in California, they just pretty much went out of business, right? Now, maybe they'll stay. Maybe they'll be forced to stay. I don't know how that works. But nevertheless, they just lost 30 years worth of profits in one fire season. Or I guess it was maybe 4 fire seasons. The 2017 fires and then the 2019, 2020 fires. So this guy was complaining about it in his op-ed. The government must step in to make sure that there's a price on carbon. There's a price on carbon so that the effects of climate change can be paid for. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, of course he wants a price on carbon. Of course he does. And that he wants that money to go to the insurance companies. So when California burns and the insurance companies are not allowed to leave, there's a fund that they can pull some strings, because that's what they do, and they can take a back alley into the treasury. Some funding source or some law we passed or some emergency funding for the fire departments will end up having, of course, $500 billion earmarked for insurance claims. So, but the money has to be there. The money, who's going to put up the money? When it was PG&E and their equipment raining sparks onto the trees, it was easy to understand where you had to go to get the money. Essentially a public utility. But in the absence of that, where are you going to go to get the money? Well, what they want to do, long story short, is they want to go to the fossil fuel companies. So here's an interesting layout. Or as I called it at the time, a layup, like in basketball. This is a layup. Sometime in the future, I slam dunk this thing. But here's the layup. So let's put a tax on carbon. Let's have it, every step of the way. When you extract the oil, when you refine the oil, when you transport the final distillates, when you pump the oil into the ground at the service station, and you pump it into your car when you swipe your credit card. Okay, every pathway, price on carbon. Now, of course, what you're going to say is, well, the consumer ends up paying that. Yeah, that's true. There may be parts of it that they can't. They could put a price. They could put a levy, a mineral rights levy on fossil fuel companies, and simply tell them this has to come out of your profits. This comes out of your profits, and you have to pay us after you do your quarterly statements and pay us out of your profits. They could say that, but in any case, yes, the consumer pays. So this has two effects, and both of them are important, and one is slightly more important than the other. The first, the one that's slightly more important early, is the raising money. The insurance company wants the money, Where's the money? We got to indemnify ourselves for all these losses. Probably California alone, we probably had 200 billion in losses. All right, overall across the state, probably about that much. Just gauging the size of the fires against fires we've had in the past, and just estimating what the price is going to be. So, someone's going to pay for that. So you put a price on carbon, and you raise fees, and you put it away in some trust account, and when the fires happen, you pull out of that account and you pay back the insurance companies for their losses on insured assets. Okay, and that keeps them in the state. But the second thing that happens, which is more long-term, is that you put a price signal on carbon emissions so that people who are actually doing the emissions have to pay. Now, this guy, when he wrote his opinion piece, he mentioned, it was like a throwaway line, just like one line in there, like, oh, and we have to draw down carbon. So he was not only talking about indemnifying the insurance companies who are having huge losses due to climate change, but also a future project to pull down the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere so that insurance companies don't have future liabilities. So he wanted both of those. He wanted there to be a fund paid for by the fossil fuel industry and every point in the chain, and he wanted money for research and development to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere from fossil fuel emissions. So the elites know this. They got it. They know what the challenge is. They know what they're doing. They got this thing. So that was published in the newspaper. Now, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that. Speaking for Goldman Sachs and the insurance agency industry, he didn't have to do that. He could have talked to his buddies in a bar someplace and over the drinks, over wine, and said, well, we have to do this, we have to do that. And then they could have gone to Congress and pulled the strings, as they do, and got the things they wanted. But he didn't do that. He actually published an opinion piece in the newspapers. The press syndicates picked it up and went everywhere in the world, and he put it out there. He put it out there, and he's telling you something. Now, you didn't read that piece because you wouldn't care about him or what he's talking about or his recommendations. I read it, and I was really interested that he was even doing this. Why is he doing this? And I came away from it thinking, why is he doing this now? I think it's because, I realized this morning, it's because they're about to pull the trigger. They're about to pull the trigger on climate change. See, they like this planet. They like this planet, like it the way it is. They like their technology. They like their ski slopes in the Swiss Alps. They like their jet setting around the countryside, going places interesting, vacationing, whatever. They like making money, but they also like this planet, and they like it the way it is. They like having water. They like having ice that comes from, the water that comes from ice when it melts. They like having an ice cap and a polar, North Polar ice cap, and they like having Greenland covered in ice, and they like the world the way it is. They like having the tropics. They like the deserts where they are, but nowhere else, just where they are. Okay. They like their lifestyles, of being able to do whatever they want with fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are just an amazing thing. And they don't want the planet to be destroyed so that they don't enjoy it anymore. It's pretty simple. And they're the elites. So if they want the planet to stay the way it is, more or less, then they can engineer that to happen, right? They pull the strings, as they do, and they make sure that it just goes forward the way it is. 12 mile an hour winds. Sounds like it's 40. So these guys are telegraphing that the show's over. The guy didn't have to do that. He did it. They're telegraphing that the show's over. There's going to be a lot more of that. And the end game, which we are in now. We are in the end game. The end game plays like this. They need to get the mass of humanity off of fossil fuels. They can keep the fossil fuels for themselves. Their private jets, their private limousines, natural gas for cooking their steaks, whatever they want to do. Okay, they'll keep that for themselves. Everybody else has got to pay. Well, even the elites will pay it. Sure, fair enough. I'll pay $40 a gallon for gas. What do I care? I'll pay $40 a gallon for kerosene for my private jet. I don't care. I'm made out of money. What do I care if it's $40 or $4? It doesn't make any difference to me. Where it makes a difference is to the hoi polloi, right? Everybody down here, not everybody up here, everybody down here. So at some point they'll say, yeah, because of the fires and the damage, and we have to raise money to pay for to rebuild people's homes, and we have to raise money to rebuild entire communities that are burning down. And also insurance is really expensive now. It's got to be publicly funded and all this kind of stuff. We need to have a serious price on carbon. And I don't mean 20 cents a gallon like you would hope. It could be, it'll probably start at $2 a gallon. But very quickly, like within a year, go to 20. And very quickly, like within another year, go to 40. And who knows how high it has to go. They have to raise trillions of dollars to pay off both their annual losses due to climate change, fires, floods, storms, the whole thing. And they don't have to attribute an individual storm to climate change. They just want the money to be there, okay? A big event, all the houses are burned, okay, dip into the climate change fund. Not even going to argue it. Don't want to hear about your phony thoughts about it. That's what that money's there for. So they want the money there to pay themselves basically back for all these losses. But they also have to start doing research and development on how we're going to solve the problem. Paying for the damage is certainly one set of issues. Solving the problem is another one. Scientists speaking, you've got a problem. Can you solve the problem? Well, let's go look at the technology side over here. Maybe we can solve the problem. Well, oh, geez, that's going to cost money. Wow, that costs a lot of money. Okay, who's going to pay for this? Okay, well, we have a price on carbon, so we'll just use that to pay for the research and development, which are two different things, right? The research is expensive, and there's you go down a lot of blind alleys. It costs a lot of money. There's risks. So who wants to do research that's risky without, getting paid in advance? Not me. I'm not going to do that. So you come up with this money. It comes from the fossil fuel industry and all of their products and all of their consumers, and just throw money at the problem. You're not sure about your solution, if it's even viable. Well, it doesn't matter. Test it, develop it, find out about it. And then when you find the 4 or 5 or 6 things that actually seem to work, then you have to develop them. And that's more trillions of dollars. And then you have, and after you develop the facilities, which is what we're talking about, you have to operate them. And that requires energy too. Well, where's that coming from? Fossil fuel power plants? I don't think so. So these facilities are going to have to be solar powered or nuclear powered. More money. So you have to develop the stuff, you have to deploy the stuff, you have to power the stuff, and all that takes money. Who's going to pay for that? Are the taxpayers going to pay for that? Taxpayers are broke. Taxpayers don't have enough money to pay for, at least in this country, the U.S., don't have enough money to pay for their own Social Security benefits, disability, and healthcare. Taxpayers broke. Why are they broke? Because all their jobs went to foreign countries. Why was that? Because it was more profitable for corporations to use labor arbitrage overseas to make their products, okay? We've all heard the stories, if you're paying attention. You may pay $200 for a pair of Nike sneakers, but it costs $2 to make them in Indonesia. Yeah, that's how that works. So America's broke. we can't pay for anything. And you're not going to be able to pay for $40 a gallon for gas. If you can, then go right ahead and pollute all you want to, because the money you're paying is going to be used to clean up your mess later. That's the thought. Cross your fingers, right? If you can't afford $40 a gallon for gas, then you can't play at this level. You're not a player. So stop driving. That's what they're going to have to do. They just put a huge price on carbon. They can afford it. Hell, they'll probably deduct it in their taxes, right? What do you think that people like Jeff Bezos do to pay zero taxes every year? He has expenses. So the price of carbon for his fuel, for his private jet, is an expense. So he just deducts it. Not a problem for him. It's not a problem for him. Problem for you, my friend. And you're not going to be driving. And if you want to get out of your axe and go running down the street like an axe murderer, screaming bloody murder, go right ahead. Because then they got a police officer who's going to shoot you for your trouble. If you don't go down the street waving an axe because of the injustices, then you're just going to have to suck it up and find some other way to get to your job. Because that's what they're going to do. They're going to put a price on carbon. Because they have to pay for the cleanup. And they don't want to pay for the cleanup. They want you and me to pay for the cleanup. Or basically, they want anyone who wants to be a player to pay for the cleanup, including themselves. If they're flying a jet, they'll pay. It's fine. Even Stephen, they'll pay. They will pay. And then they'll deduct it on their taxes, but they will pay. That's the beginning of the end game. That's how the end starts. As this proceeds, people have to start making adjustments to how they live. So if you work in a town that's 40 miles away and you're used to drive, and you live in this really affordable house, 40 miles away in a different community because it's, smaller community, more rural, whatever. And you're used to getting in your Ford truck and jumping on the freeway and driving, 40 minutes to work, and it's not a big deal. It's kind of a hassle, but it's a comfortable truck, heated seats, radio, CDs, cruise control. It's not too bad, 40 minutes. Okay, but if that 40-mile drive costs you 4 gallons of gas, and each gallon of gas costs you $50, then that drive in costs you $200, and the drive back costs you $200. And if you only made, I don't know, how much do you make a day? $400? Well, then there you go. You're working for nothing, essentially. I mean, the boss still paid you, but you're working for nothing overall. So those lifestyles are not going to work with that kind of a price on carbon. You can say, well, we don't have to worry about that because that'll never happen. Oh, really? Okay, fine. Fair enough. But let's say it does happen, okay? Then living 40 miles away from work ain't going to cut it. A lot of Americans have their pride in their independence and their big lot and their big truck, and they got a horse and they got a barn and all this kind of stuff. They feel secure. They feel like they're independent, and that's just going to change. Now, it's a big problem for most Americans, change, and they're not real adaptive, we've discovered recently. So my expectation would be that a lot of Americans who live too far from work are simply going to kill themselves. Right now, I think the highest rate of death due to handguns is actually middle-aged white males, and the most common cause of death by handguns in that population is suicide. They shoot themselves. So you're going to have a lot of dead people who just can't cope. Well, that's okay, right? That's what the elites are basically saying. If you're not a player at this level, then you don't have a life anymore. So how you want to deal with that's up to you. You can immerse yourself in conspiracy theories. You can shoot yourself in the head. You can wig yourself out on opiates. Whatever works for you, right? Oh, it doesn't matter. Then the next shoe to drop is not only can you not drive yourself to work every day at that price for a gallon of gas, your food can't make it to the market at that price of a gallon of gas. Or if it does make it to market, a head of lettuce costs $20, right? We all know how that is. So when this price of carbon starts feeding its way through the system, the ability of people to participate in BAU, business as usual, becomes degraded. They can't drive to work. They can't drive to the market, which is also 20 miles away. They can't afford the lettuce when they get there, or the boxes of cereal or anything else. So look what happens. And this is not really necessarily a bad thing, by the way. Look what happens. They go all in on hand tools, seeds, draft animals, domestic animals, farm animals, and harvesting equipment, threshing equipment, milling machines, and they just, settle down on their 3 acres and they grow some corn over there and some wheat over there, and they got a sturdy horse to pull a plow, and they've got shovels, and they've got strong sons and clever daughters, and they make their own clothes, and they fix their own house, and they're barn raisings, and people live locally, and they're all producers, they all grow most of their own food, and there's not much need for cash. They import a couple of things, sugar, salt, maybe nails, but there's a blacksmith in town probably, right, making wire nails. So it's not all bad. It's not all bad. And did you really want to drive every day into the city 40 miles to work at that desk job? I mean, come on. Not really. There's not much purpose in that. So we end up with a kind of a divide, but the divide works. People who can't play at the level of $50 a gallon for gas don't. But, and some of them will commit suicide because of all the injustices. And some of them will simply say, well, I still got a shovel. I'll use my last bit of gasoline to go buy some other things I need. I'll keep my truck and I'll keep it, fuel in it. And I'll go into town rarely to get the things I need. And eventually, maybe the town will come to me. Maybe we'll have a little dry goods store right here in town. And, it'll be fine. And just gradually go back to something that's more sustainable, that doesn't rely on fossil fuels. Oh, okay. So that's one outcome. And that's not a bad outcome. And lots of people used to live that way.
Right.
And people who live that way are how we got to where we are today, right? They were our predecessors who got us to where we are today. Right. So it's not a bad thing. Now, if you're going to get all butthurt about it, you could say, well, the elites are still flying by. I still see that private jet go over my house once a week. Well, okay, but the elites always did things that you and I couldn't do, right? Before we beheaded them all, there were kings. And there were lordlings and dukes and barons and all this kind of stuff. So used to work that way. It could work that way again. People at the time didn't have a real problem with it. And then it changed. And that they didn't have a problem with that either. And now it's got to change back. So don't have a problem with it. That's just where we're headed right now. And the elites will continue to do what the elites do. Now, the problem is, we can't feed the world. We, the West, can't feed the world with fuel at $50 a gallon. We'll probably barely be able to feed ourselves. In fact, most people will be in the business of feeding themselves and nobody else. You'll have your corn patch, your wheat patch. Maybe you have a little bit of surplus. You can trade, barter with neighbors. Maybe somebody has an orchard and they barter the fruit for the eggs that they don't have. Well, everybody has eggs. Anyway, you can't feed the world that way. The only reason we can feed the world is because one guy in a tractor can pull a plow over 1,000 acres in a day. But that's made possible by fossil fuels. So as the elites settle into their wonderful planet all by themselves, and the rest of us are sort of, doing okay, but just for ourselves. We're just doing for ourselves, right? Doing okay, but just doing for ourselves. The elites are not going to be feeding the world. It's not going to do that. I mean, maybe they will. I mean, maybe they could. Maybe there's still enough. They can't, because the price of carbon for the fuels means you can't run the tractors. You just can't. And are we really going to give away corn at $400 a bushel to the Africans and the South Americans and the Chinese, for that matter? Are we really going to subsidize the world at that loss? No, we're not. It's everybody on their own. So everybody goes back. Everybody goes back to their ancestral ways. If you were a yam farmer and you were a yak herder or whatever you did, you grew sugar cane, you had your rituals, your village life, your domestic animals you used for food. Maybe you were a hunter on the Kalahari. I don't know. You go back to that. Go back to something simpler, local, hyper-local. Everyone's supporting each other and themselves, small communities, village life. That's not 8 billion people. It's just not. We were, at the year 1700, the last time humans on this planet lived like that, the year 1700, there was maybe 600 million humans on the entire planet. Living all pretty much the same. according to the seasons, by the sun, up at dawn, in bed at dusk. Maybe you have one candle you burn once in a while for being up late at night. Uh, Firewood for fuel, you know the story, right? Wasn't a bad life. Those are the people that got us where we are today. They did well. Okay, look around you. They did pretty well with what they had. They did really well. We're here to talk about what they did. We are here to talk about and celebrate what they did. Okay, they did fine. They didn't go extinct. They did fine. Here we are. So we have to recognize that as a thing. That's a thing. We can do that, and we'll be much better off now than they were. They didn't even have a germ theory of disease. It was all miasmas and demons and shit like that. So hey, look what we've got now. We've got penicillin, antibiotics. We've got surgical procedures. We've got hospitals and universities, and hey, we still have trucks, right? And so yes, you can have these things, and if you break your leg, a doctor will set your leg, and you won't be, have to amputate your leg like they used to do. And if you do need to haul dirt because you're digging a basement, fire up the truck. It's going to cost me an arm and a leg to haul this dirt, but by golly, I got a truck. I can haul dirt. So you can do that. It's not like we're not going to have these things. It's just that you can't live the way we've been living in this profligate burning fossil fuels like nobody cares.
Like there's no tomorrow.
Well, if there's going to be a tomorrow, then we can't act like there's no tomorrow. All right. So it's not like it's all bad. It will be unjust if the elites can continue flying and dining and skiing. And you may look at that and say, that's not fair. But what was unfair is the last 50 years of lying to people that, yes, we can do this forever. That was unfair. Telling people
and promoting it.
And they knew in the 60s this was going to be a problem. Lying about it since the 60s, saying, oh, that's nothing. Go skiing, go driving. You love it. Go buy a new car every 3 years. You love it.
Yeah.
Go to Hawaii. Go whatever. Cruise in your old age. That was unfair. For them to lie to us, that was unfair. And Trump lied to us, and that's unfair. He shouldn't have done it. Even if he did it to not hurt our feelings and make us scared, he shouldn't have done it.
Well, it's all the propaganda.
And when parents lie to their children about Santa Claus, they shouldn't do it. Because then the children grow up and they're like, cringe, I believe in Santa Claus, okay? Don't do it. And when Joe Biden comes in, he says, we're going to use technology to solve climate change, and we're going to float all the boats, and everyone's going to have a job in green tech, and he's lying to you. It's not going to happen. I mean, I can look at it. I can listen to him. I can listen to him, what he's talking about. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because I say it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because it can't. Okay, there are limits. We've been acting for a long time like there's no limits. Okay, that was wrong. People telling you there's no limits, they're lying to you. There are limits.
They want you to buy stuff.
They're called the laws, or they just want you to stretch out until you just are so stretched you break. Okay, and when you're broken, you go live under a bridge. You're not even a human being anymore. They don't care about you when you're broken. They stretch you out till you're broken, and when you're broken, you disappear. You don't vote. You don't collect unemployment. You don't do anything. You're just gone. You're just composting out under a bridge. Yeah, so they'll stretch you till you break. They take all your money. They take all your labor, all your creativity until you're broken, and then they just throw you in the compost pile like they do everybody else.
Right.
And you can let them do that, or you can step back and you can say, all right, this is not working. I got to do something different. I don't want to be that broken person composting under a bridge someplace. And everyone has that opportunity. You're not going to get that truth from Joe Biden. He's just not going to say it. Is he not going to say it because he wants business as usual? Probably. But he also may not say it because he doesn't want to scare you. He's also not going to say it because he doesn't want Democrats to get trounced in the next election. He's also not going to say it because his business people, pulling the strings as they do, don't want him to say it. There's lots of reasons why Joe Biden is not going to say what I'm saying right now. And I understand all those reasons. And maybe even one of those reasons, possibly one, maybe two, are noble.
Well, I want to say something because I was just on the county board of supervisors meeting, Santa Clara County, and listening to the people because it was public comment.
First of all, what? Is that related in any way to this?
Well, I was going to, I don't know, maybe it's not, but can I just say a little bit, which was, and you can tell me not, and that's fine.
It's local news.
Well, the local news is people are suffering. That's what I wanted to tell you.
Okay.
People are suffering.
Okay. Fine.
And,
How?
They came on to the Board of Supervisors because there was public comment in the beginning.
Okay, so these are real people.
These were people.
Okay. The actual people, the hoi polloi. Okay.
Right. And
they came on, they did their public
in
comment.
Spanish,
and
a lot of times in Spanish,
Fine.
and they would give you an English
And what were they
translation.
saying?
They're suffering. That they've had COVID. They're told to stay home, and they can't do it. They have to keep a room over their a roof over their head, and they're supposedly a county program that they're not getting access to it. They're not getting the resources that they're supposed to have gotten, and they're asking the county supervisors, "Where's the money that you said that we could have?" And it's not there. And these are the stresses that the people are under when they have COVID. And
all right, let me address, stop there. It doesn't matter. The actual stresses don't matter. The fact that it's coronavirus is interesting because coronavirus is a dress rehearsal for climate change.
Right.
Okay.
Getting help that they need.
The reason it's a dress rehearsal is not so much, well, it's two things. One, how do we respond to the people suffering?
Right.
Okay.
And also to prevent the spread of COVID.
Okay, I'm not talking about coronavirus. I'm talking about the
suffering,
higher level abstractions.
And the impact to the whole community, because that's where,
how is it that people are suffering? What was the nature of their suffering? We understand that now. Okay, they can't pay their rent. They can't,
food.
They can't find food. They can't travel. They can't see their family members. This is suffering. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, and two, how can people now adapt to the situation? Now with coronavirus, they're getting no assistance at all because it's expected to blow over. There's going to be a vaccine, business as usual after that. Climate change is not so lucky.
So can I made my comment because it was very heartbreaking to hear the suffering, and the suffering. I said that we have to have a right livelihood, and that I was saying that our business as usual, our corporations and putting the money towards business, and has shown us the corruption as we face the SVO and the Chamber of Commerce, the not right livelihood, that we have to change the way we're resources, and that it does have to be universal basic income, and we have to take care of the people. And that's where the money needs to go. And we need to create the money is just a bridge towards our hyper local economy where we're growing food locally and our needs are met locally from the producers that we've all become, our neighbors that have become the producers for anything else we need. And we barter and trade for that. And how the 4-H and the Grange are tools to help us move towards that. And the county understands that. That's the basis of our Santa Clara County as an agricultural county. And we need to become an agricultural county again. We are the Valley of Heart's Delight, and we have to become that again. And that the transition needs to be through the universal basic income to provide that for people, as a bridge.
Right.
And can it provide it? And then we as individuals have to live differently, live more communally, help each other like we're doing in taking our money to create from going from a 1-1 house to a 6-6 house. That is providing housing. And if you can do it that way, or you can do it the old fashioned way, which the old Victorians, the big homes that we all have, 21 people live in it. You don't even have to remodel at that point. You just create spaces, for each other like we used to do. And we need to live differently and live hyper local and live multi-generational in a way that hopefully, right where we help each other to survive.
Now, the need to live differently, that's kind of a hippie thing. We all need to love the earth, whatever. But it's not the reality is going to be that it doesn't come from within people that they want to be different. I am never going to talk to someone and hold them by the hand and convince them to be different, okay? The impetus to be different is going to come from the outside. It's going to come crashing down like a meteor strike, okay? The dinosaurs suddenly had to do things differently, okay? And this meteor strike is going to be the same thing for us. When our meteor lands, it wipes us out. And it's called global heating, and it's called economic collapse, and it's going to wipe us out. When it does that, the people will understand, whether they feel it in their heart of hearts or not, they're going to understand they have to do things differently.
Okay, and the people that are in...
I'm wiped out.
Yeah, well, the people
now what do I do?
Nicaragua are experiencing being wiped out, literally.
Yeah, they didn't need to be wiped out. They were already living the right way. the double hurricanes that landed in Nicaragua and made their rural lives
making it now right now as we talk
should have landed in Los Angeles, right?
Right.
Where now you need to think about, okay,
you
so
need to live
now
differently.
what do I do?
Yeah, the LAians need to live
I didn't realize my lifestyle was so fucked up. Now I do. There's nowhere to eat. I can't eat. There's nowhere to go. There's no electricity. What do I do? Okay, double category 4 hurricanes hitting Los Angeles or San Diego would open up a discussion, right? Like, what should we be doing here? This is obviously not very sustainable.
Right.
Doing that to Nicaragua is meaningless. They already are.
And nobody knows about it because the media doesn't cover it, and so, not as much as they should. And so this is our global South, and it's already experiencing climate crisis. And we in the North have to be Homo sapiens, wise humans, to say, well, it's happening there and it's going to affect us here. And, in terms of climate refugees, and really start making the changes. And that's not what's happening. People, and that, when I was on the meeting last night with our planning director, Rosalind Huey, planning, code enforcement and building, we didn't really get that answer because it got sidetracked saying it was happening at city council. But, the question I was asking is, how are we going to avoid the car apocalypse that is coming to our neighborhood because of the Google Village
once again,
climate refugees?
You don't have to worry about it. It's a problem that's going to solve itself. You know how that problem solves
itself? The car apocalypse will be here.
Yeah, the whole city center will turn into a parking lot 3 times.
Yeah, but aren't we supposed to be wise humans and planning?
No, we're not wise humans. We don't do anything. So you're trying to warm them Chicken Little about the car apocalypse coming, and the whole city's going to turn into a parking lot 3 times a day. And don't worry about it. When it happens, they'll say, "Oh, wait, our city is a parking lot."
Oh, so are you saying that's the way we need to go? At this point, is just let it go?
Yeah, just let it go. Let them see. Let them see that yes, your city turns into a parking lot 3 times a day. All your roads, surface roads, freeways, everything. All the cars are not moving.
Okay, so you're saying it's a waste of my time to yell and
Absolutely.
scream.
Yeah, you don't have to try and warn them because they don't want to hear it, and 2, they're going pell-mell in this direction. It's too late to try and stop them. Maybe 50 years ago you could have stopped them, but now you can't stop them. So let it happen, because what's going to happen is they're going to find out that they can't do this. And that's the meteor strike. You can ignore it. You can tell it it's a fake. You can say it's a hoax, and then it hits anyway. And so they're going to get a car apocalypse, and their city is going to turn into, all their roads and freeways and interchanges are going to turn into a parking lot 3 times a day. Okay, there you go. I can't say problem solved, but problem revealed. Okay.
Right. Okay.
And these politicians won't make a move until they see the problem. It's going to be the same thing with climate change. Now that it's here, they're making their move. After 60 years of ignoring this, they're going to make their move. Okay, fine. People have been telling them for 60 years that this day was coming. Now the day is here, and now they're talking about making changes. And so what intelligent people are supposed to do is say, okay, so Google is coming to downtown San Jose. It's going to become a car apocalypse. Here's my chance to get myself out of my car. What do I need to do? I need a bicycle. I need a basket on my bicycle. I need maybe a trailer or whatever I need. I'm going to fix my life up so that I can just ride around the cars. Okay? I'll ride on the sidewalk if I have to. And I won't have to worry about the car apocalypse. So intelligent people are going to solve their problem for themselves. Stupid people are not. And then they'll be at the city hall banging on the podium, I need all these cars to go away. But they're talking to Google, and Google's going to come along, pull the strings as they do, and they're going to say, we're going to solve this problem. Well, we're not going to solve it for you. We're going to solve it for ourselves. And, they'll have parking lots outside of town, and their employees will park outside of town. There'll be a Google bus going back and forth, whatever, and they'll solve the problem, whereas the city could not. So don't worry about it. Google will solve the problem for their employees, and the problem will disappear for everybody.
Well, that doesn't give me a lot of hope. But I mean, I guess you can let it go, and maybe that's your.
You're going to have to let it go.
Let it go. And maybe that's the message
everything
today.
Has been
let
let
everything go.
Everything has been let go.
So I'm going to go.
Intelligent people are supposed to anticipate the problems and solve their problems for themselves.
We can't, because the thing is it's also destroying our health. And, so we die and we disable. We can't just let it go and say that a bicycle around it is going to be the solution, because we're not going to be here. We're going to die from all the disease of the pollution.
5 years from now, we'll sit down here and we'll talk about the problem,
Yeah.
how it was solved.
I guess so. I don't know. All right. Well.
And you can use your 5 years in the interim, you know,
Well,
tearing your
what does
hair
it call
out,
it?
or
Something
you
at
can just sit
windmills.
back and
What
watch,
is it called?
tilting at windmills,
Tilting at windmills.
or you can just understand that they will solve the problem when the problem arises.
Yeah, right. That is stupidity. That's called stupidity. That's not being a Homo sapien, right? Basically.
So they're stupid.
It's wise. You know, we're supposed to be
Yeah,
forethought. We're about forethought.
they're not about that.
You know,
they're
right.
about making money.
Right.
And it makes them look stupid, but that's what they are. They're about making money.
Right.
And they're not going to throw any.
Usual.
That's business as usual, making money.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump is about that, and Joe Biden's about that, and the elites are about that, and they're pulling the strings.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't work anymore, they'll do something else. If it doesn't float, and if their solution doesn't float all the boats, well, the Titanic didn't float all the boats either.
Yeah.
And we went on after that.
Yeah. So that's your message, basically, is that.
No, my message is that, one, this has been allowed to continue until it's become apocalyptic.
Right.
And two, if you have any intelligence, you should be preparing.
Okay, fine. But it's going to be a collective
for
thing.
It to break.
Right. It has to be.
I don't say how you prepare.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not advocating that people make bunkers in the backyards and hide in them. And
well, you are. To some degree, everybody prepare themselves,
I'm
which is
saying,
okay.
Well, okay.
That's
the only thing you can do right now, in the absence of what you imagine,
with no leadership,
is that you have to prepare yourself.
That's all you can do.
Now that
means
leadership. Get out of your car-dependent lifestyle.
Right.
Move closer to your work.
All right. Fine.
Get a bicycle.
Right.
Teach your kids about climate change, and start to make adjustments. You can do that individually. Now, if you have like-minded neighbors, like-minded communities, well, then you can form a community to do that, and that's even better. That's even more successful. But in the absence of that, all you can do is yourself.
Because the politicians,
we have no leadership.
The politicians aren't.
We have no leadership.
Right.
Well, maybe that'll change.
Yeah.
But right now we have no leadership.
That's true.
But if you start making noise like we need leadership to help us deal with this, maybe you'll have leadership.
Well, that's what the people were calling. They're calling today, crying to
them. Right.
We have no money.
They're complaining, and they say we don't have any leadership. No one's helping us. Okay, maybe some leadership will develop as a consequence.
Right. So the voice makes a difference.
I'm not saying there isn't ways to bring leadership. I'm saying we don't have it now.
Yeah, we have to keep pressuring.
Everybody works for business now.
Right.
And it's painful to watch, but that's what it is.
Right.
I don't know when that happened. When did that happen? Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex, that it was going to, take over democracy. So maybe it did, and maybe that was just the tip of a bigger iceberg. That he saw his little bit, being a military man and a president and a politician. So he could kind of connect some gears, right? He could kind of connect some dots here and say, MIC, this is going to be a problem for the American people. And he was right. Okay, so now we're total war all the time. So that was true. That was true. We pay $2 billion for airplanes. So yeah, he was right. Does he get any credit for that? No, not really. But he didn't. What he didn't catch, and maybe he just didn't have the vision for it, was that there was a bigger iceberg below that little tip. And now we're overwhelmed with corporatist politicians. It's not just in the military and the industrial complex. It's everything. And we passed Citizens United. It allows corporations to invest in political campaigns. And okay, so now they pull the strings as they do. And so you can't expect leadership when that's what's going on, except that now the businesses are starting to understand that their cash flow is going to be jeopardized by climate change. They understand that now. Whole industries are going to be impacted by climate change. And when industries, entire segments of an industry, of an economic model begin to crumble, then different parts of that economic model start to fall down as a result. It happens in ecosystems. If you go into an ecosystem and you start destroying species, eventually you inadvertently hit a keystone species, one that's actually kind of critical to the whole thing, and then the whole thing collapses. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? Well, you just destroyed a species that was critical to that habitat being maintained. A keystone species like a buffalo, which buffalo basically created the Central Plains just by doing what they do, eating and pooping and wandering around in huge herds. They basically created that biome. and without them, you don't have that. So that's what we're going to run into here with our economy, is that as the economy collapses and evaporates, maybe a little piece here, a little piece there, doesn't matter too much, but then some big piece breaks and boom, the whole thing goes down. You just basically stepped on a landmine. So corporations are worried about that. They're worried about whole industries being blown up. I started out talking about the insurance industry. That's a big one. You can't buy a house without having insurance on that home, and the mortgage lender determines that that's the case. You have to do that, and you have to pay for it because you are insuring their investment in you. Okay, if the house burns down, it's not worth very much, and they want an insurance company to indemnify them for their investment in you, even though you're a smoker, you smoke in bed and you caught the house on fire. Okay, they want to be made whole. So you have to buy home insurance on your home if you have a mortgage. After you don't have a mortgage anymore, I guess you can do whatever you want. But you have to insure their investment. Well, what if you can't get insurance in California because of the fires? Well, then maybe you can't have a mortgage in California because of the fires. If you have cash, you can pay cash and you don't need a mortgage, right? Then you buy insurance or not. It's up to you. But if you're like most people, you need a mortgage, 30-year mortgage, whatever, and you need to be able to afford the insurance. What if you can't even buy insurance in California? I don't think it'll ever come to that. I think the state, which is in the pockets of the real estate and home builders associations, pulling the strings as they do, the state will make sure that people get mortgage insurance so they can continue in that particular treadmill. State of California is actually the insurer of last resort. They actually have an insurance program that people can get into when they can't get insurance any other way. It's subsidized by the taxpayers. I don't think everybody can do it. It costs money. And of course, it takes losses in these fires, right? So if all these people living up in the Piney Woods, thousands of those homes burn and they're all on this insurance policy plan out of the state, well, then the state's insurance plan goes bankrupt, just like all state would go bankrupt in this similar situation. And so how sustainable is that? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, they could all jump on the state's insurance policy and, taxpayers can pay for their losses, but how many years can that actually go on? Oh, and by the way, when the taxpayers have to start voting for additional taxes to themselves to pay for these insurance funds that are funding all these people living up in the Piney Woods, the taxpayers living in the cities, who are probably paying most of the taxes for this, are going to say, I'm paying for what? So those hillbillies can have their house burned down every 3 years and get a brand new house every 3 years? Really? I'm paying for that? You're asking me to pay trillions of dollars for that? Really? And what do I get out of this? Anything? A feel-good story? No, I'm not doing it. I'm not paying that. I didn't know I was paying that before. I'm not paying it now. I'm not going to pass more funding than that. I'm not going to put $100 billion into that fund. You can't tax me for $100 billion so those people can live out in the Piney Woods and get a new house every 5 years. No, I'm not doing that. So it can go on for a little while until it can't go on anymore, until people wise up to what's happening. They say, oh, living in the Piney Woods. Yeah, I hear about those communities burning every year. I thought those people had insurance. I thought Allstate and Mutual of Omaha was paying for that shit. I'm paying for that shit? Are you kidding me? Well, now I care. Well, now I want to see the receipts. Okay, so it's over, right? It's done. What do those people do? Well, I guess they can live in the Piney Woods in a single wide and not have insurance. Okay, no mortgage involved. Pay cash for it. Cost you $1,700, $5,000, whatever. And when it burns, you buy another one. They can live in their log cabins. Well, that's not up to code. Maybe there's code for log cabins, right? They live in their log cabin, have a latrine outside, a hole in the ground with a little wood box over it. Outhouse. And bring the water up in a truck. I've known lots of people live up in the woods, bring their water in a truck. They either own the truck or they hire a company to bring it in for them. Fill up a big tank. They got water for summer. All right. That's how you can live in the Piney Woods. Outhouse, a trucked in water, no electricity, or you have a couple of solar panels. So we can't have solar panels in the piney woods. So no electricity, a generator, candle light. You can live in the piney woods, but you can't live in a 5,000 square foot McMansion because you can't get insurance unless you pay cash, and you don't need insurance. So where are those people going to go? Good question, right? And that's about the same time that $40 a gallon for gas hits. So where are they going to go? Good question. Well, if we recreate our agricultural system, which is not up in the piney woods, please recall, we're going to need them down here with shovels and axes and oxen and plows and all that, right? So I did some math in my head. Humans could suffer a 99% die-off and still be 80 million humans. There's not 80 million of anything on this planet right now. Ants. There's 80 million ants. We are large animals. To have 80 million of us on this planet is a huge, big deal. We could have a 99% die-off of humans and still have 80 million humans. That's 1%. The 1%ers tend to have this planet for themselves. They don't care about everybody else, and they can't feed everybody else, and they're not going to bother anyway. Work. Why would they do that? What do those people do? Nothing. So that said, the elites do need some people to do work. The master of the house needs his manservant. The lady needs her lady in waiting. You need a cook and an assistant and a butler and a groundskeeper, and you need a certain number of people. So maybe 5% of the current population can be sustained. So, maybe 400 million people, which takes us back to where we were in 1700. The last time we did this, the last time we lived by the sun and the seasons and the candles and the oxen and the seasonal harvests and the grains and the threshing floor and the flour mill on the river. The last time we lived like that was in 1700. And there was about 600 million humans on Earth. Well, there you go. We can do that. I guess we're going to do that. Joe Biden got elected. I don't expect him to do anything different. The elites are still pulling the strings as they do, and he's going to dance to their tune because that's how it's done. But somewhere along the line, in his term, his 4 years, this story is going to start to emerge. That we have to start pricing carbon. And it's not going to come from Al Gore or me. It's going to come from the elites. And they're pulling the strings. So guess what's going to happen? You're going to get a price on carbon. And maybe it's $2 a gallon the first year, but then it's $12 a gallon the second year. And pretty soon it's not affordable. And this happens very, very fast because it needs to happen now. It needed to have happened during Trump administration. I think if they'd had a different president, they would have been pulling those strings and starting this game now. Well, now that he's out, the conversation has started. What are we going to do? You're going to hear what they're going to do. They're going to do something. Right? This is not some dark Illuminati conspiracy. They have to do this. They want to do this. They want the world to be a certain way, and they can make that happen if they do things a certain way. And that's within their power. So why not? Why not just do it? They don't have to ask you for permission, and they don't have to care how you feel about it. They just need it done. Pull the strings as you do. So we'll see. I don't expect anything out of Joe Biden except business as usual, but the business as usual is evolving, okay? The business as usual, the way that businesses want it, is changing. So that's what you're going to get.